and our jobs keep America going. Yet, the job site is where we have the least power. Many of us voiceless as corporations gamble away our health and our family's future just to feed their greed. It's time for the working class majority, for you and me, to regain our voices, to turn up the volume, assert our collective power, and to organize. Join me, Rick Smith, every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. right here on WBAI 99.5 New York as we bring the class war and fight for a better future. The Rick Smith Show, every Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. right here on WBAI 99.5, New York's listener-supported radio. For more information, visit WBAI.org.
99.5 FM, WBAI New York. Time right now is 6 o'clock. Get ready for the Rick Smith Show with your host, Rick Smith.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. Last week, tons of positive response to the bans off our bodies days of action. Tens of thousands of New Yorkers, men, women, shutting down the Brooklyn Bridge, marching towards Foley Square. You know, I was hoping for one of those today, honestly. There should be, until this issue is settled, there should be this kind of activism daily. Because look, the people who want to take this away, they are not giving up. And the Catholic Church jumping into this, I guess, as well, as they announced that Nancy Pelosi will not be getting communion. Sorry, Nancy. No for you. And look, institutionally, the right wing, they've done the organizing. They see their moment, which is why this memo was leaked. I had someone right away going, see what these liberals did? Going, no, this wasn't done by a liberal. No, this was done by the extreme of the conservative wing. This was done by someone really far over there, someone who, well, maybe has a history of doing it. I'm not saying that a certain Supreme Court justice's wife did it. I'm saying it's quite possible that she did, since she is tied in those worlds and, well, has had some questionable behavior. We find out this week that she was in on some calls to overturn our election. Yeah, not surprising. But yeah, this is one of these fights of our moment, and one of those issues that we need to be getting behind. But good for all the people who are out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm going to jump into calls as soon as we can. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425 if you got thoughts on that. This week was interesting. Interesting in listening to conservatives lose their mind. Lots of finger pointing. Oh my gosh, baby formula. All we heard about was the babies. Because have you noticed how the media is not really paying attention to the abortion issue very much? No, it's been all about Formula Gate. Oh, the babies. How much we love the babies. Oh, we love the babies. Now understand, if you really did love the babies, if you were truly passionate, the Catholic Church cared as much about, the babies as they do denying Nancy Pelosi communion, they would have been doing some things. They would have been doing some actions. They'd have been holding drives. They'd have been, all kinds of stuff. Nothing. Silence. Quiet. Lots of conservative politicians doing the finger pointing. Rick Scott, senator from Florida, actually had pictures of baby formula from Panama, had pictures of baby formula from Israel, said he's got pictures from baby formula on shelves all across the world. And I'm going, how did you get that? And since you're a sitting senator, wouldn't you have the power to go, hey, if they got it sitting on their shelves, why don't we go buy some? I don't know. We've got planes. We've got a military everywhere around the world. Let's ship some back. Oh, no, can't do that. That would be like solving a problem. Kevin McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, outraged. America needs a plan immediately to solve the shortage of baby formula in our country. The silence from the Biden administration, he said, and the FDA is unacceptable as parents across the country are worried about feeding their children. So this week, Democrats put forth a piece of legislation to help the FDA address the shortage issue. About $28 million, not a lot of money, a drop in the bucket compared to what we spend on, I don't know, anything else. Give the president some tools to do something, to actually solve a problem. Do you know how many Republicans voted for this incredible piece of legislation that was going to solve a problem? Exactly 12. You had 192 Republicans who basically have said we want the babies to die. Now remember, these are the same people who literally said that. What? They're giving baby formula to those illegals down on the border that we've detained? What? They're giving formula down there? We should let them die. Basically was their statement. And the Democrats didn't seize on that. So they come up with this piece of legislation, just a meager amount of money to work on this. And 192 Republicans say no. But Rick Scott had pictures. They love the babies, love the children, but the children, those kids on the border, those illegals, let them starve to death. And what's interesting, they do it on the same day that Oklahoma passes the strictest abortion ban in the nation. Now, here's the part of this that I find interesting. We're going to force people to have children. We're going to force them to bring children to term. But when times are tough, and I mean, this is really, the imagery to me is important, because we're going to mandate that you have children at conception. This is now nothing. No IUDs, no Plan B, none of this stuff. The second conception happens, this is now a person in Oklahoma. And look, and this draws a whole bunch of other questions that I found this week that people were throwing at me about, what happens with, with in vitro fertilization where they fertilize a whole bunch of eggs in a dish. Are those now people too? This is, again, ideologues legislating without thinking. But there's not much thought on that side anyway. But you take this where we're going to mandate every fertilized egg has to be hatched, but we're not going to do anything to actually feed them. That has really been that's the Republican Party in a nutshell, because they haven't done anything to ensure that healthcare, haven't done anything to ensure nutrition, housing, any of that. So, and this is not new. This has been the mantra for a very long time. They care about the fetus. They care about that, but they don't care about the people. Once it's out, you're on your own, brother. Pull yourself up by those bootstraps. It's really crazy. But it is kind of where we are as a country, where it's all about pointing at the problems. It's all about keeping people angry. And look, nobody knows how to point out a problem better than Republicans do. Nobody knows how to create problems better than Republicans do. Nobody who knows how to make those problems much worse than Republicans do. But solve them, not so much, because they rely on invisible things. It's God's will, the invisible hand of the market. It's out of our control. We can't do anything. Sorry. Can't do it. It's some magical thing out there. But we're just going to point it out. We're just pointing it out. For instance, again, all we hear about is inflation. All we hear about is gas prices. And I go to the gas station and some idiot always slaps the Joe Biden did this sticker on the gas pump. And you go, hey, dummy. Biden didn't do this. And yet, I've yet to find one of those people who's been able to make a cogent argument on how that happened. They just got a cute little sticker that they paid for. And I love this part of it. someone made a profit off of their stupidity. And I love that. A fool and his money once parted. That's all that. But I love the fact that Katie Porter tweeted out this survey done by the Dallas Fed. It's a survey of our friends in the oil industry, and asked why they weren't drilling more. Why aren't, again, the free market, is supposed to, when there's increased demand, corporations are supposed to increase their productivity to meet the demand so that they can make more profit. This is how it's supposed to work in a functional kind of capitalist system. That's how we're told it's supposed to work, right? It's how I learned it in economics class 1,000 years ago. It's how it's supposed to function. So if there's more demand, you want to get more customers. You're going to drill more oil so you can sell more product, so you can have more. It's all of that, all in a whole ball. So they did this survey, and what they found is nearly 60% of the executives who were polled in this blame Wall Street, citing, quote, investor pressure to maintain capital discipline as the primary reason oil companies weren't drilling more despite the skyrocketing prices. Now, if you listen to their calls, yeah, they can drill more. They got the capacity. They've got leases. In fact, Biden's handed out a ton of them. They just choose not to because they understand supply and demand. They understand a shortage of supply. We can jack the prices up. We don't have to do as much work. We can charge you more. We've got you by the short hairs. You have to have it. Same thing with the drug companies. You want this life-saving drug? Huh? How much you willing to pay for the life-saving drug? How much is your life worth? This is what these companies have figured out. Now, 11% of the folks who were surveyed said environmental, social, or government issues. So, the Greens or Joe Biden, that's them. So 11%, said Joe Biden did this, 11%. Almost 60% said, no, it's the investor class. They want more money back. They want their shares. They want what they're getting. 8% said difficult getting investment, more financing. 15% said other reasons. But the investor thing, that's the big part of all of our problems across the board. What's driving inflation? Wall Street. Yes. Been saying that from the beginning. So when Democrats said, hey, we're going to do something about this, and I've been saying this from the beginning, the first calls of inflation's out of hand, I've been saying, where's Harry Truman? Where are the commissions to look into why we're having all this inflation? Where's that happening? Why aren't we looking into windfall profit taxes? Well, this week, Kim Schreier, a Democratic representative from Washington, and Katie Porter, Democratic representative from California, put forth a piece of legislation. That piece of legislation, called the Consumer Price Gouging Prevention Act of 2022, would have given the president the ability to declare an energy emergency, and then look at what they would declare unlawful hikes in prices and home energy prices, and investigate and hold people accountable. That's all. Pretty simple. Give the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, some tools to crack down on gouging. Simple. How many Republicans voted for that? Oh, yeah, not one. Not one. Because they love crisis, especially in this moment when they're not in power. They love the ability to, look, Joe Biden did this, because they know the idiots, the mindless minions, will go, Joe Biden did this, and stick stickers all over things that they, with their own money, purchased and someone else made a profit of. I mean, it really is masterful. And it is why Donald Trump says he loves the poorly educated. It really is. Let's go to the phones. Got Maya on line one. Maya, how are you today?
Yes. Greetings to the beloved community. First of all, I'm going to hold on. I think it was Thurman that Martin Luther King Jr. cited, in that the arc of the universe bends toward justice. It's a beautiful poem. And, of course, in this abyss of the digital world, we have gotten away from really digging down and reading and seeing where we are and where we're going. But I want to make a couple points of clarification around this issue of abortion. And in fact, Rick, Mimi Rosenberg and Ken, they had a program a couple weeks ago, right, that everybody involved in labor needs to listen to. They brought on, I didn't get a name right off, that's why we need to use the names when we're doing these interviews throughout. But she was the head or the spokesperson for it. It was either the National United Nurses Union. I'm sure it will come up. But she made wonderful points. But one of her points was that abortion is a medical procedure. So when, for example, a woman has what's called an ectopic pregnancy, the fetus lodges in her fallopian tube, and as it grows and would burst and, damage all her organs, she literally dies. But in Missouri, they're literally putting in law. This is how putting in law that would not allow that woman with an ectopic pregnancy to save her life. So, okay, abortion is a medical procedure. Very, very rarely, I think it's under 1%, when the fetus is not viable or would damage the life of the mother, is when you get into the late term. So that always comes up with the Republicans, which is they just don't have the facts. The other point that the nurses, United National Nurses, wonderful speaker made was the issue of self-determination. I mean, how is it a country, when countries like Argentina and Chile and Peru finally move in the right direction, behind the ingraining of this Catholic teaching, and then the United States is literally going to enslave and cause 8 and 9-year-olds who are in puberty that early, but they're raped or it's incest. This country. My last point, Rick, is that the reading. We must read, because I fell into that digital hole at myself one point. The Buffalo situation with an 18-year-old is someone who wasn't reading. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that Nexus magazine gives us another view around alternative, natural health, and also what's really going on. So one great article recently was called Mass Psychosis and the Rise of Totalitarianism. So it says it right there. And then there's another article that shows about this invisibility technology where they're manipulating, and there's a patent on this, the paranormal world. So we must read broadly. Love your work. The email is coming to you as we move forward.
I appreciate
and I look forward. I love the callers. They have so much to say and so much connection. And thank you, and everyone be safe.
Good stuff. Thanks, Maya. I appreciate it. Let's take a quick break right back after this with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Remember, if you miss any of the program, make sure you download the podcast. Always there, always available. Even our Monday through Friday programs, make sure you grab those as well. Also, remember, I need some WBAI buddies. Go to WBAI.org and become a buddy today. Quick break. Right back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1950. That was the day 31 dock workers were killed and hundreds more were injured in an explosion at the Raritan River Port in South Amboy, New Jersey. Workers were loading ammunition from freight trains onto ships. The freight's ultimate destination was Pakistan. Practically every structure in South Amboy suffered some form of serious or structural damage, with windows blown out everywhere and debris reported as far as 25 miles away. 58 800 more unexploded anti-personnel mines had been strewn about the port. Demolition experts had to be called in for removal. A subsequent fire at a nearby agricultural phosphorus plant complicated their work. The blast was caused by the detonation of 150 tons of military explosives and gelatin dynamite. The piers, equipment, and railroad cars were all demolished. Over a dozen nearby barges were either on fire or sank. Emergency operations went into effect and a state of emergency was declared. Key industries in the immediate area were seriously damaged, including the International Smelting and Refining Company, Pennsylvania Railroad maintenance shops, and the power plant for New Jersey Power and Light. According to a report by the National Board of Fire Underwriters and the Fire Insurance Rating Organization of New Jersey, packing of the mines and fuses by the Kilgore Company was not in accordance with Army standards, and labeling was confusing. The shipped mines were labeled as M1A1, though all parts but the detonator were identical to M1 mines, discontinued by the Army in 1942 for their apparent defective fuse, leading to accidental firing and explosions. The report refrained from drawing a certain cause or assigning blame. Instead, the underwriters offered a number of possible scenarios and recommendations for best practices to be implemented. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So grateful to Mitt Romney. Oh boy, I'm so happy about this. Mittens, rich guy Mitt Romney, who probably never had to worry about a financial thing in his life. Mittens decided that he and some other Republicans, they were going to stymie Joe Biden in that whole debt forgiveness thing. They are going to move forward on a piece of legislation they're calling, I love this, I love Orwellian language, the Student Loan Accountability Act. That sounds nice. The Student Loan Accountability Act. What the Accountability Act here is going to do is going to make sure that Biden, the Education Department, the Justice Department, or the Treasury Department, they can do nothing to forgive, cancel, work with, nothing on the student loan front for students at all. Basically saying, hey, tough noogies, you're on your own, kids. You took out the loans. You agreed to the 9, 10, 11% rates. Yeah, we understand you're saddled with a lifetime of debt. Suck it up, buttercups. You know, because us rich people, we need it. Wall Street needs the money, man. Education Incorporated needs the cash. And look, this is part and parcel to what the GOP stands for. And this is the part that's just bizarre to me, that you get working class people who are going to side with these folks. But again, it comes down to the money that gets funneled into the media that keeps us stupid, I guess. Because this is a story that didn't get a lot of attention, that I thought was kind of important. One of those things that maybe we should be reading the Wall Street Journal, the newspaper of the investor class. Headline: CEO pay packages rose to $14.7 million in 2021. And you look at this and you go, this is the 6th record year in a row. Salaries for our chieftains, our top CEOs, going up, and up. 6th straight year. In fact, 9 CEOs got pay packages in excess of $50 million a year. And you go, but hold on, wait a second. So explain to me why. Inflation, I'm sure. Inflation, because, workers' wages are going up. Total compensation rose by at least 12% for the executive class. Shareholder returns, this is the part that blows my mind and goes back to where I started. Shareholder returns nearly 30%, according to the Wall Street Journal's analysis of data from more than 400 companies. So our big boys doing really well. Wall Street doing fabulous. How you doing on Main Street? How's that inflation treating you? Because remember, this is the important point. This is the point. Joe Biden did this, remember. This is Biden doing this. This is Joe Biden got a flip. He's got a switch in the White House. Inflation, we're going to screw those workers. And I said from the very beginning, it's the business roundtable. It's these corporations in their boards, and got to feed the return monster. Got to get that next quarterly dividend. Got to get that next. Got to feed that stock price so we can get our bonuses and we can feed ourselves. Get those stock buybacks. This is where, again, in a functional democracy, we would have a legislative branch that would be pushing legislation to go after these criminals, hold them accountable, protect the consumer. That's you and me. Protect the worker. That's you and me. Sadly, what's going on is, well, we've got the best democracy money can buy. I got an email yesterday from Marianne saying that she was surprised because I'm sure you know that there are a bunch of books that are being banned across the country. And a lot of parents are looking into what books are being banned in their schools. And Marianne was shocked to find a couple of books that my generation read as mandatory reading in school. And one of those that she talked about was Grapes of Wrath. It is banned from her local school, as is To Kill a Mockingbird. Those were mandatory reading. And now To Kill a Mockingbird, I know they use the N-word there a lot of times. And there's a bunch of marginalized characters and there's a bunch of stuff that I can see. But Grapes of Wrath, who are we going after there? Oh yeah, we're going after the rich people. Can't demonize the rich people. And she sent me a quote that it's been years since I've read the book, but she sent this short passage from chapter 25. She said, and it goes. There's a crime here that goes beyond denunciation. There is a sorrow here that weeping cannot symbolize. There is a failure here that topples all our successes. The fertile earth, the straight tree rose, the sturdy trunks of ripe fruit, and the children dying of hunger must die because a profit cannot be taken from an orange. And coroners must fill out the certificates, died of malnutrition, because the food must rot if not sold at a profit. And the eyes of the hungry, there is a growing wrath. In the souls of the people, the grapes of wrath are filled and growing heavy for the vintage. I actually remember that quote from reading back, years ago. And talking about it back then, going, the reality is if our captains of industry, the ones making $14.7 million a year, if they can't turn a profit from something, they're not going to do it. They can't make more money off it, they're not going to do it. Take our oil industry, for instance. They're happy making what they're making. They're not going to drill more. They're not going to make your life easier. They're not going to make my life easier. Take the baby formula people. We're told in a functional system, that's what we're told. In a functional system, when one of the companies goes down, the biggest one, because of contamination in their factory, which killed 2 babies, and has, I guess, made a number of other ones sick, that the other ones would ramp up production to meet the needs of the consumers, and hopefully in the other 3, because we've only got 4 companies, again, monopolistic, that have 90% of the market. In a functional capitalist system, we'd have 10, 20, 30. We'd have a bunch of them. We've got 4. So one goes down, we lose a massive amount of capacity. But in a functional system, the other 3 would ramp up production, work a little overtime, put more things in so that they could steal some of their market share. That's how capitalism's supposed to work. That's what we're told. That didn't happen. They didn't ramp up production. They just raised prices. Because that's how this works. They don't care about your kids. They don't care about you. They care about profit. They care about how much they can make for it. They don't care about the common good. They don't care about society. They care about the bottom line. And this is the problem that we have all across this country. So this week when I see Elon Musk in the All In podcast saying, I've voted overwhelmingly for Democrats historically. Overwhelmingly. Like, I'm not sure I might never have voted for a Republican, just to be clear. Now in this election, I will. And then he doubled down, tweeting out, in the past, I voted Democrat because they were mostly the kindness party, but they have become the party of division and hate. So I can no longer support them, and I will vote for a Republican. And everyone's like, oh, my God, look, Elon Musk's going to become a Republican. Oh, they must be great. I'm going, why are we listening to one of the country's robber barons? Oh, that's right, because we didn't read Grapes of Wrath. We've forgotten the war between capital and labor. How much capacity, how much is Musk taken from a system? Oh no, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. He's a smart guy. He's learned how to use a system. He's used lots of tax dollars to build a company that, I'm not against. Look, I love electric cars. Now, I do think the greatest line against what Musk said was from former Obama speechwriter John Favreau, who said, hey, man, if you want a bunch of electric vehicle hating climate deniers, that's on you. I think that's the right line. Personally, I think Musk's position now is more about he stepped in the Twitter pile and is trying to figure out how to get out, and he's trying to stir up some what. But we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But I do find it interesting that working people will look to someone like Bezos or Musk when it fits them, and ultimately Bezos as well, because Bezos criticized Biden this week as well. Biden said, you want to bring down inflation? Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. I find nothing offensive in that. Well, Bezos did. And he went after the president, saying the newly created disinformation board should review this tweet, or maybe they need to form a non sequitur board instead. He writes, raising corporate taxes is fine to discuss. Taming inflation is critical to discuss. Mushing them together, just misdirection. I don't think so. I think it's part of it. I think it's part of the discussion. I also think, more profits tax board. I think we should be looking into that as well. Now look at Amazon. Amazon in 2021 avoided paying taxes on about $5.2 billion that should have come into the coffers. They reported net profits of $35 billion. Paid just 6%. 6%. Now remember, our corporate tax rate's 21%. They paid 6%. Again, Amazon has one of the most incredible tax avoidance structures in the entire country. They've mastered it. In fact, I would argue their entire model. They say behind every great billionaire is a great crime. Screwing the taxpayer was Amazon's great crime, because originally it started off you didn't have to pay state sales tax. That's what the draw was. Hey, you don't have to pay sales tax to us. So states got cheated out of sales tax, and brick and mortar stores, well, they had a competitive disadvantage. But we're in this moment where people are still looking to these robber barons going, yeah, that's them. Am I wrong here for pointing this out? Am I wrong for looking and going, there's a working class ethic that's been systematically removed? Because we're pretty far away from the Great Depression, but you would think when they collapsed the economy in 2008, it would have kind of put it back in our brain that we really shouldn't be trusting the captains of industry, our Wall Street tycoons. Maybe not so much. Just my thought. Love to hear yours. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. You got a thought, question, comment, want to hear it? Also, make sure you download the podcast. Never miss a second of the program. Share it with your friends. All of that. Quick break. Right back.
Divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1989. That was the day that black author and Marxist theorist C.L.R. James passed away. James was born in Trinidad, at the time a Caribbean colony that was part of the British Empire. His father was a school teacher. James became a leading intellectual on the subject of black liberation. His most famous work, The Black Jacobins, tells the story of the 1791 Haitian Revolution, when enslaved black Haitians successfully overthrew French colonial rule. James was a frequent contributor to Labor Action, a Marxist journal produced in New York from 1940 to 1958. He wrote about the struggles of black workers. He often penned fiery language. For example, in 1941, James wrote an article imploring black workers not to cross the picket line during a strike against the Ford Motor Company in Detroit. Ford had a reputation of hiring black workers at a time when many employers discriminated in their employment practices. But James warned his readers that the Ford Company was no friend to the worker and that the company was attempting to use race to keep its workforce divided. James wrote, quote, "Ford is one of the most dangerous enemies of labor who exist in this country. This enemy of society has been laying a train of race hatred in Detroit and is now about to touch it off. The organized working class movement and the Negroes will have to fight hard and long to check and frustrate and defeat this sinister plot. This will be no easy fight." In other articles, James also used his pen to call out labor unions for not including black workers and to call for the unification of black and white workers in their struggle. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You got a question, comment, something on your mind, want to hear it. Also, remember, need buddies. Become a WBAI buddy by going to WBAI.org. Make a donation to help keep the station strong and on the air. Now, last Tuesday was primary day. Kentucky, North Carolina, Idaho, Oregon, and my state of Pennsylvania all had their primaries. In my state of Pennsylvania, the results very interesting. On one side, you had not much in the way of surprises. You had John Fetterman the win the Senate side, which good guy, straight talker, good solid working class values. Not surprising at all. Josh Shapiro, the gubernatorial candidate, ran unopposed. Not surprise. No surprise there. On the Republican side, you have the Nazi Benito Mastriano, who I'm going to say flat out, this guy, he's being dubbed as an insurrectionist because he was one of the guys who on January 6th was there, organized busloads of people to go down to the insurrection. Now, this is where I find interesting. Now they're pushing back. No, we were going down because it was a day of, family and a day of unity, and it was a day of America. And, how they're spinning it. No, you went down there to stop the steal. That was the name of the damn thing. You can't then change the whole banner of the reason you were there. You were there to stop the certification of the election. That's why everyone was there. Everyone knew the reason you were there. Everyone knew. It's the reason you went. Everyone knew. Everyone was angry at Mike Pence, which is the reason they built the gallows and wanted to hang him. So now they're kind of doing a little rewriting of that. But that guy won the Republican side handily. I mean, walking away. On the Senate side, the Republicans, very interesting. You had Dr. Oz, the TV guy, not really strong on any real position. over his lifetime, if you go back and look at maybe where he was 10 years ago, he's kind of vacillated on his positions, kind of a little squishy here or there. Who knows? He voted in the Turkish election, says maybe he didn't. There are pictures of him doing it. I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Then you got the businessman who does business in China, because we know this because the two David McCormick, the businessman, and the Dr. Oz, quack doctor, have been spending millions lobbing these assaults at each other. In fact, we've just been inundated in this state with ads going at each other in those directions. They're at a dead heat. In fact, there's going to be a mandatory recount. In fact, we'll get to this in a minute about the mail-in ballots. Well, it's interesting to find that Republicans actually do like mail-in ballots and now care about them. I don't want them all thrown out because they may decide how to sway the election. But there was a woman, Kathy Barnett, who was the Trumpiest of all of Trump. She should have walked away in all of this. And had she looked like Benito Mastriano, looked like an old white guy who looks like a thumb, she would have walked away with this, I think. Now she's a black woman running in a Republican primary, and I think that had a lot to do with it, and I'm going to throw that out there. But she was literally crazy. I mean, she was way out on the fringe of. She was more Trumpy than I think Trump himself is. But she came in and not too distant third. Interestingly enough, her supporters are claiming that it was rigged and that it was stolen from her. The most Trump thing ever. See, Trump should have endorsed her because she really is the embodiment. Her supporters are the embodiment of everything that is Trump. Now we're not going to know for a while who the candidate, the Republican candidate, is going to be. It's going to be a mandatory recount. They're still waiting on the mail-in ballots. Interesting decision on Friday, though. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals evidently issued a decision from a 2021 judge race that said the mail-in ballots, and this is what they've now said, that the ballots that came in that don't have a date on them but were received before the election have to now be counted. Evidently, and again, with all of these, you're going to have glitches, you're going to have things that happen. Yourself, you get mail sometimes, and they go through the machine, and they don't get stamped. As long as it was received, they're saying it can be counted. Now, people on the other side, well, who's to say that someone didn't just stuff the ballots in there? Now, that's a valid argument. It's an interesting argument. But the court is now saying that those ballots that were received, those are now going to be counted. I don't know how that's going to play into this. And when a court challenge happens, how long does it take to get Oz or McCormick certified? How long is it going to take for each of them? Or do they both start campaigning right now as if they're the candidate for November? This is going to be an interesting little game to play out. For me, I want John Fetterman to win. I'm a Fetterman guy. He's a good working class candidate. I've known him for years. I love the guy. Would love to see him in the Senate because I think he's about getting stuff done, making working people's lives better. He's not a millionaire rich guy who one lives in New Jersey, the other lives in Connecticut. I don't know what they're going to do for Pennsylvania, but okay. But here's what I do know. I know both of them, rich guys, gave themselves a bunch of money for their campaigns to throw insults at each other that we all had to endure on TV and on radio. And the Supreme Court this week, again, our 6-3 Supreme Court, thank you, Donald Trump, thank you, conservatives, for giving us this, do what a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court is meant to do, make rich people richer and give them more political control. They decided this week that, well, if a wealthy candidate loans themselves a bunch of money, evidently Dr. Oz has, I guess, he's somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million that he lent himself, and McCormick lent himself somewhere around $11 million. evidently, the Supreme Court has now said, now in the past, you just ate that. You weren't able to go back to supporters and go, hey, give me all my money back. I guess you could go get like $250,000 or something, but for the most part, you ate it. Now this says, no, once you win, once that's all over, you can then go back and go, no, I want my money back. And other rich people can then give you all this money back. And this decision's retroactive. So the $15 million that Oz spent and the $11 million that McCormick spent, when this is over, they can go back to donors and say, oh, hey, give me my money back. This gives, again, our investor class, our wealthy, even more power in the electoral system. Because now you're going to have people who are going to run up massive amounts of debt being dependent on them paying it back. Now, of course, our Supreme Court says, well, we can't find anywhere where that's happened. We can't find places where that kind of corruption happens. Yeah, because it's not possible yet. But here again, remember, this is the Supreme Court that says corporations are people, money is speech, screwed over workers and their unions by defunding them, and now gonna overturn a woman's right to self-determination. Yeah, this is that Supreme Court. And remember, this is retroactive. But again, best democracy money can buy. The most money they can put into the wealthy in corporate America's pockets. Are you surprised by it? Are you surprised that this is what they get away with? I'm not. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break right here, right back after this. Remember, become a WBAI buddy by going to WBAI.org. Sign up, become a monthly subscriber, and we will send you our book, Daddy, What's the Middle Class? Story of our labor history tour from back in 2013. Lots of interesting story, lots of labor history. Good stuff. Right back after this. Stick around.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1920. That year, a national coal strike had won unionized miners a 27% pay raise. But the miners in West Virginia were not in the union. The United Mine Workers decided to launch an intensive campaign to organize this important coal mining region. It took courage to join the union. If the coal operators found out, you would be fired and thrown out of company housing. And so today in labor history, detectives from the infamous Baldwin Felts Company came to Matawan to evict miners who worked for the Stone Mountain Coal Company. Local police chief Sid Hatfield supported the workers. He showed up where the detectives were eating dinner with a warrant for the detectives' arrest. The detectives quickly produced their own warrant for Sid Hatfield's arrest. The two sides stood in the street in a standoff. Then, suddenly, a shot rang out. Miners dueled with the coal operators' hired guns. When the smoke cleared, 7 detectives and 2 miners were killed. Among the dead was Albert Felts, one of the detectives who had earlier participated in the Ludlow Massacre in Colorado. Sid Hatfield survived the gun battle and became a national folk hero. The next year, he was assassinated for his role in Matawan. 10,000 angry miners took up arms in what has been called the largest insurrection since the Civil War. The fighting culminated in the Battle of Blair Mountain, where an estimated 1 million rounds were fired between the miners and the company's hired guns before the U.S. Army intervened and ended the battle. In 1987, John Sayles directed an acclaimed film based on the events in West Virginia. Matawan became a classic, must-see film about the labor movement. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Also, become a WBAI buddy. We need folks to sign on and say, hey, the Rick Smith Show. I kind of like that guy. Kind of like the stuff he does. Want to make sure that this show stays on. I want to make sure that the station stays on the air. And if you do that and they tell me, we'll send you a copy of Daddy, What's the Middle Class, our labor history tour book from 2013. Back when my kids were little, and some cute little stories about them as well in there mixed as well. My son, who, we drug along, he was just like 5 at the time. The memory that he has, there are a couple of them, but the one we rented this giant RV and, took, the family and my crew cross country, and I hit the brakes and he was on the bed in the back and slid off the bed and slid right down the aisle all the way to where we were driving. And he was just laughing hysterically. And that's the one thing, the vivid memory he has from the whole trip. We were on the road for an entire month, drove almost 10,000 miles in 28 days and hit, virtually every state and saw all kinds of stuff and did all kinds. That is what my child remembers. Let's go to the phone lines. Got Rose on line 1. Rose, how are we doing today?
Terrific. Listen, I want to thank you for your history segments because this information is just not out there. You can go to the library or, any high school, college. There's no discussion about labor, and you bring it out every week, and we're very grateful for that. And I want to make another point, and that is that I don't know how many years ago they stopped stamping the date on documents, that come through the post office. It was a cancellation date, or if you used a Pitney Bowles, it showed when the actual document was sent. I mean, this is preposterous. Who decided? I mean, where is it in the Constitutionalist and all these Federalists? Our Postal Service was in here far before our current setup. And to deny people to know when a document or a letter or a bill was sent is a violation of our right to know how things are going.
Don't they?
Who made that decision? When did that stop?
No, I think they're supposed to be dated, aren't they?
No, I haven't seen one well, I'm a blind person, but I asked my aides. I said, hey, when they mail that? Oh, it's nothing here.
Huh.
It's something we've got to bring up with these people who think, please, let's find out why that went away.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting
away?
question because, as I was looking at stuff, I thought that they had, dates on them. I now have to double check. Because I know sometimes I know sometimes I get letters and there won't be the stamp. Oh, like they can't, the cancellation over the stamp. There's that stamp, and there's usually a date on that. And I didn't know that went away. And
I don't know how much circulation because in reality, it has been a very, very long time. It's within the last 10 years that they got rid of that. I used to be in business. And, you knew what was, when things were mailed. And another little trick here, especially in New Jersey, as a disabled person, we have had a situation where many letters come through the officials from the state, and they do not date the letter, or they'll backdate it, and then it sits on somebody's desk for 2 weeks. And then it doesn't have on the bottom that if you do not agree with this decision, you have 30 days from the above date. They won't even sign their name now. Huh. So any opportunity for a disabled person to say, no, I don't like your decision, is just out the window. And this has been going on since 2010, 11.
That's a good question. I got to find out when that happened.
Yeah, it's nuts. Well, listen, you just keep up the good work. You are the most interesting thing on Sunday, and I'm a faithful listener, and I'm so grateful that you're there.
Oh, I'm glad I'm there too, because today's Saturday.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate that she likes the labor history too, and I get a lot of compliments on that because it was one of the reasons that part of the reason I started doing radio, years ago, was the political part of this. That a lot of my truck driver buddies were spewing Limbaugh and Hannity and the rest of the debacle crew, the outrage factory. And I said, there's got to be some balance, but there's got to be some education component and the labor history part. I thought was a huge part of this. So when I try not to do commercials. We try not to sell things we try not to. We try not to do much of that. So for commercial breaks, I came up with this idea of, hey, let's do education stuff. If we're going to use Madison Avenue ideas, let's do really short, digestible, clips that people can, learn something, take a couple of points away from. And I put together a really fantastic group of people at the Illinois Labor History Society, and we were able to compile some of this stuff, and they're just make me look really good. And I appreciate them and all the work that they've helped with us to put these together. And someday, it's my plan someday to, going forward to get the funding to be able to do another year of them, because we have 3 years of them that we had done a couple years back when we did have funding. But that's my goal again, to update them and make another. Now that I know how to do them a little bit better, that's my goal. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Greg on line too. Greg, how are we doing today?
A little warm out today, but there is no climate change. Don't worry.
It's summer. Remember? Oh no, is it summer yet? Yeah, it's summer, as George Will would say.
95 degrees here. Yeah. Okay, first of all, thank you for continuing your show. A truck driver with a show. We need more of this, my friend. Good God. And we need more of the local press and independent radio. I'm trying to find in all my boxes of stuff when we still had a newspaper called the Village Voice in New York, when they had reporters. There was a weekly column called Annals of the Age of Reagan. And it was an update. They showed you two bankers walking off with all money falling out of suitcases. And one of them, towards 1990, was the state of Pennsylvania, a state of massive decline. And what they did, Rick, they showed the million manufacturing jobs that had disappeared in 10 years. And there was a map of Pennsylvania, and it showed you all the towns and how many jobs and everything else. And at the end of it, it says, "Thank you, Gipper," right? But when would a newspaper do that now? And with, incredibly accurate information.
Yeah, no, good luck finding that.
When I moved to Scranton, 14 years ago, job thing, I was there for 2 years. And all the people were convinced, of course, that Reagan, a lot of them did, that Reagan, of course, came down from heaven and all that type of stuff. So more stuff like that. Your labor history thing is always incredible every week. I have to say, too, I always look forward to hearing Rose. Jesse Jackson, this is going back to the 80s again, 1988, when Jesse Jackson spoke, he said, "As far as the disabled goes, give me Roosevelt in a wheelchair and not Reagan riding a horse." Keep it up, Rose.
There you go. Good stuff. Appreciate it, Greg.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, where's today's FDR? Look, as much as I like Biden, there's more that should be done. But here again, he can only do in this moment what Joe Manchin's willing to let him do, and that's the really scary part in this moment, because Democrats have to find that spine, that fight, which is why I go back to what I said about John Fetterman. I think he is that kind of Democrat that the party needs to coalesce behind. Someone who is right on the issues, but somebody who's willing to not take the guff. Which is why I hope in 2024, and I know I'm going to take heat for this, but I hope Sherrod Brown is on the ticket, either as the president or the vice presidential candidate. Whoever, I don't care what that looks like, but someone like Sherrod Brown has got to be there because of the message that he brings. We have got to get back into getting the working class voice back and bringing people back into the fold. That this thing with Musk is interesting to me, because all the people who are cheering him on are attacking Democrats because of the Democrats' diversity. And see, it's all no. They want to divide and conquer. This is deliberate. This is the wealth class figuring out, hey, there's a point of division here, because they understand government's the only way that's going to hold them accountable. They are robbing us blind. This is the part that's so frustrating. They are making so much money off of us. They are literally robbing us blind, and then blaming someone who has no control over it, because, the Manchins of the world won't allow that to happen. Back in the FDR years, people would be in the streets. People would be out in the streets. I mean, it would be that simple. This is what we need to be doing. This is what we need to be doing much, much more of. We need to be, well, standing up, speaking out if we have to. Well, screaming and hollering, carrying on, doing all of that stuff. For me, at least, that's my thought. I'd love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Quick break. Right back.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show on WBAI 99.5 New York.
When Supreme Court member Sam Alito's secret plan for canceling the constitutional right of women to end their pregnancies leaked out to the public, Republican politicos went ballistic. Over the leak, that is. The court's Republican Chief Justice John Roberts called the unauthorized disclosure, quote, an affront to the majesty of the Supremes. Likewise, Republican congressional leaders have furiously demanded to know who done it and why. Way beyond the political screeching and posturing, however, a Pennsylvania woman quietly wrote a letter to the New York Times that calmly posed a couple of honest, more fundamental questions. Why are Supreme Court votes and processes so hidden in the first place? And how did this grip on secrecy become so sacrosanct? After all, as important and enormously powerful as this tiny judicial body is, it's still a governmental agency doing public business that affects every American. So the legal work that the 9 members of this ultimate judicial authority do, including their internal machinations to reach such awesome decisions as nullifying fundamental human rights, ought to be transparent to all who will be affected. The ugly truth is that today's third branch of government has needlessly, dangerously, and rather ludicrously become a black-robed autocracy. Bear in mind that these 9 individuals are enrobed for life, make up their own rules of ethical conduct, operate almost entirely behind closed doors, and the bare majority of only 5 of them can arbitrarily overrule presidents, congresses, states, other courts, voters, and your own personal life decisions. This is Jim Hightower saying, and now comes a GOP majority of Supreme Justices determined to entrench corporate plutocracy, right-wing theocracy, and Republican sovereignty over all of us. That's why we must finally lift the medieval level of secrecy the partisan judges are using to shroud their actions. The Hightower Radio Lowdown is made possible by you lowdowners who subscribe to our monthly newsletter, The Hightower Lowdown. You know who you are. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So another week where shootings and racism are eliciting thoughts and prayers. Hey, more thoughts and prayers. Yeah, thoughts and prayers. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Thoughts and questions. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Interesting. One of my least favorite comments of the shooting in Buffalo was Arizona State Senator Wendy Rogers, who evidently has ties to white nationalists. She said that the whole shooting, it was staged. It was government agents. It wasn't really a crazy 18-year-old kid writing a 180-page manifesto of nonsense that he heard spewed on fake news. No. It was government agents. It's a false flag. Where do they get these people? I mean, it's amazing. And look, I'm not going to get into the shooting. It's another crazy person who's been infected by this kind of hatred that's gripped our country and has been allowed to, take over an entire political party. And what came out this week, and I'll tell you, I'm surprised at the number of people who act like they're shocked that there's this replacement theory it's been around for a while. But I had people go, I can't believe that's actually been going on. I can't believe people say that. And you go, yeah. That. What do you think the What do you think the main message of the Republican Party is? What do you think that is? So now you got this murderer accused of killing 10 people, wounding a bunch of others. 180-page manifesto, just spewing what, someone like Tucker Carlson says on TV every night. This guy went specifically into a black neighborhood, to a grocery store, with the intent to, quote, kill as many blacks as possible. Pure evil. And you go, oh, that's just... But I argue that that's not something you're... I don't believe that's something you're born with. I think that's something that you're groomed into. Now, Republicans have been talking about grooming for a while. Because those Democrats, they're all pedophiles. And now remember, the state of Tennessee just did away with, marriage requirement ages, as long as a pastor or family says, no, it's okay, you can marry my underage daughter, 42-year-old guy. But it's the Democrats, who want to eat the heads off of fetuses and drink, this is what we're told anyway by our Q folks. In fact, there was one woman who said that evidently Washington, D.C. burns fetuses to use to power the city. And I had a guest who asked the simple question, how many kilowatt hours do you get from a burning fetus? Because it's completely ludicrous and deserving of that kind of ridiculous statement. But, I go to this and I look at, just the kind of craziness that's allowed to infect our discourse. And this rambling 180-page manifesto, which I will spend no time on. I'm told by someone like Steve Bannon, they are going to continue to promote the idea of replacement theory. The idea that non-whites are being brought to America in an effort to replace, the good white people. He's going to continue to double down on that. New York Times did a look at what Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson's been at the center of this because been arguing for a while, there he is, our white nationalists on TV every night spewing that kind of rhetoric. They found over 400 instances where he was referring to this replacement theory. And so people to throw up their hands and go, shocked. Kind of ridiculous. Now, evidently, as it's been reported in the rambling 180 pages, almost verbatim, this murderer writes the same kind of things you're going to hear on Tucker Carlson's show. And what you end up getting is all of the right wing circling the wagons, defending him. All of the right wing circling the Ben Shapiros, the whole clan. Because, well, they're in it too. And this is where the frustration, where I get into this. Look, I don't look at everyone as a racist. I don't look at everyone as a homophobe. I don't look at everyone as a misogynist until you tell me you are. And the Republican Party keeps telling me this is who you are. When you defend this kind of stuff, or you dismiss it. My favorite response that I've seen from conservatives, well, you're trying to use a tragedy. No, trying to learn from a tragedy. Because for all the talk of grooming, what happens on the right? What kind of grooming are they doing? If you look at any of their websites, it's like wall-to-wall gun porn. You remember at Christmas time? Lauren Boebert and Thomas Massey, Boebert, the Republican representative from Colorado, gun fetish Barbie, I affectionately call her, and Thomas Massey, the Republican representative from Kentucky. They had their family Christmas pictures with guns. There's Thomas Massey with this giant M60 single shot M60. How emasculating is that? It's a single shot M60. I mean, he does look manly holding it. I gotta say, and for him, it's like a giant sex toy. It's like his inflatable woman. I mean, I think that's what gets it for him. Got this giant. It looks manly. Single shot. It's kind of like you got this big thing and just not much. But this is who they've been grooming. And you think about the right-wing culture. It's all about, I'm going to whip out my big gun. I think I've told this story before. I remember when I first moved to Pennsylvania. I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland. I have always lived in sort of an urban area. So when I moved to Pennsylvania, it was a much more rural part of the state that I moved into. And where I got my first job was in a really rural area up in Monroe County, if anyone knows where that is, up in the Poconos. And I remember a guy it was the first week or two I was there, telling this story about buying this big gun and how he just couldn't wait. I mean, he was fetishizing how he was going to take it out and he was going to use it. And he was telling this story like he was dreaming someone would break into his house. And it was pornographic in detail that he was going to whip it out. He was going to stick it to him. And it was like a 10-minute long, what would have been any normal person goes, somebody breaks in my house, I'm going to shoot him. That normal person would have been that. This was a drawn out graphic, just pornographic, detailed from every angle, couldn't wait for the money shot. And finally I looked at him and go, dude, you're probably the last person who should be ever allowed to have a gun. On that statement alone. And this was before all of this stuff, this is probably going back 25 years. And you look at where we are today. That guy had kids and passed guns on, and this is the world that we're in. You want to talk about grooming? The right has groomed an entire culture of people who fetishize these guns. Look, I'm not a gun grabber. Like I said, I grew up in an area where you saw somebody walking down the street with a gun, duck, someone's probably going to die. I now live in a neighborhood where you see someone with a gun, they're probably going to the free gun range. They're probably going to go hunting. They're probably something going to go on. I understand the difference. But when you have elected leaders who are using it as a prop, where they're using this phallic symbol to show their manliness or their prowess, it's frightening. And then you put that together with the message of we're gonna arm up, and then the Tom Cottons of the world coming out and saying people like Obama and Biden have wrecked America, they've weakened America and emboldened our enemies. He's got a new book out, and the left is sabotaging America, and everything to the left of Attila the Hun is bad. This is fertile ground for the crazy. This is fertile ground for these kind of bad things to happen. So when I look at this, I worry about where we're heading. Worry about where we're heading as a country. We're a country of 350 million people, 400 million guns. There are literally more guns than people. And a large percentage of the population doesn't own guns. And as someone reminded me this week, more people who have never owned guns are buying them every day because they're concerned. They're concerned about where this country is going as the right continues to move further and further to the extreme. And I look at the state where I live here in Pennsylvania, the gubernatorial side of this race. I don't joke when I think Doug Mastriano, the state senator who won the Republican gubernatorial bid to take on Josh Shapiro in November, is a Nazi. I don't joke when I say that. I don't joke when I believe that he is an extremist. I don't joke when I believe he is a horrible candidate and will do bad things. because I've seen the rhetoric. And he's already said he's not moving to the center. No. Going to continue on this extreme path. And we'll see what kind of state Pennsylvania is at the end of this election. Now, I fear what we become afterwards. And New York should be concerned, as you should know, should New Jersey and Ohio and West Virginia and Maryland, everyone who touches us should be very concerned. Because I look at this statement by, and this is one of those moments where you go, how far do you think the Republican Party can go off the deep end? How far to the extreme do you think they can go? Pretty far. I look at the statement of this Majewski guy who's running for Congress in Ohio. And he he said that anyone who voted for Biden, any state that Biden won, that Trump lost, any of that they should secede. Any of the states that Trump won should secede from the union. That we should be ripping this country apart. There are those who are pushing for the next civil war and stoking those flames. And are we there? I mean, I look at the abortion issue. I have friends who are the Department of Homeland Security is worried that violence is going to happen. I don't see it on the left. I don't see it the way that they do. I see women demanding their rights and not putting up with it. But do you really see them, marching with weapons? I don't. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break right back after this. Again, remember, make sure you become a WBAI buddy by going to WBAI.org, signing up, and becoming a buddy today. Right back.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1950. That was the day 31 dock workers were killed and hundreds more were injured in an explosion at the Raritan River Port in South Amboy, New Jersey. Workers were loading ammunition from freight trains onto ships. The freight's ultimate destination was Pakistan. Practically every structure in South Amboy suffered some form of serious or structural damage, with windows blown out everywhere and debris reported as far as 25 miles away. 5,800 more unexploded anti-personnel mines had been strewn about the port. Demolition experts had to be called in for removal. A subsequent fire at a nearby agricultural phosphorus plant complicated their work. The blast was caused by the detonation of 150 tons of military explosives and gelatin dynamite. The piers, equipment, and railroad cars were all demolished. Over a dozen nearby barges were either on fire or sank. Emergency operations went into effect and a state of emergency was declared. Key industries in the immediate area were seriously damaged, including the International Smelting and Refining Company, Pennsylvania Railroad maintenance shops, and the power plant for New Jersey Power and Light. According to a report by the National Board of Fire Underwriters and the Fire Insurance Rating Organization of New Jersey, packing of the mines and fuses by the Kilgore Company was not in accordance with Army standards, and labeling was confusing. The shipped mines were labeled as M1A1, though all parts but the detonator were identical to M1 mines, discontinued by the Army in 1942 for their apparent defective fuse, leading to accidental firing and explosions. The report refrained from drawing a certain cause or assigning blame. Instead, the underwriters offered a number of possible scenarios and recommendations for best practices to be implemented. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Remember, check out our website, ricksmithshow.com. Lots of stuff there, lots of entertainment, all of our videos from our daily shows, all of the podcasts that you can download and grab, share with your friends. And when you do, make sure you give us a 5-star rating, maybe leave a comment, something positive, I hope. If you're going to send ugly, mean stuff, you can email me that. I prefer angry emails personally. And if you do, please make it your email so I can respond to it. I hate people who will send me something ugly and hateful and don't give me a chance to respond. It's just kind of anticlimactic because then there's no back and forth. But you can do that at rick@thericksmithshow.com. So Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, did something this week. I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but signed a bill that's going to make protesting outside of someone's home illegal. This is in response to the Supreme Court justices having some folks, protesting outside of their home. Now remember, peaceful protests. You had some people protesting peacefully. In fact, with costumes. I mean, the people who were outside of Amy Coney Barrett's house actually dressed up in handmade costumes, but thought it was well done. Good on them. But in Florida, according to DeSantis, this will be illegal. I do find it interesting that, now they choose to do this. When the anti-abortion crowd was blowing up clinics and harassing people and, following them and nothing there. Nothing there, but going after the SCOTUS people, bad. Now I gotta wonder, since Alito had to go underground reportedly, Kavanaugh was unnerved, and Amy Coney Barrett had to watch the people dancing around in handmaiden costumes. Will they now have to recuse themselves? I mean, and would it be a 4-3 court then? Or a 3-3 court, I mean? Would it then be even? I don't know. Let's go with the phones. We got Steve from Jackson Heights on line 1. Steve, how are we doing today?
Hey, Rick, great show. I had a question. I'm a little hard following your line of thinking. On the one hand, you speak very favorably in favor of the labor movement and working people. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you politically espouse the most left-wing, radical, democratic talking points. Yet it seems that the working people in this country are veering away from that line of thinking, are leaving the Democratic Party, are moving towards the Republican Party, which ironically is becoming more of a working class party, where the Democratic Party has sort of chosen to become the elite party and the party of the non-working. Can you explain or address what I'm saying in any way? Does it make any sense to you?
I hear what you're saying, and I don't agree that the Republicans are the party of the working class. I don't know how you can vote against doing anything legislatively to help address working class issues and then claim to be that party. I'm not quite sure where you say I'm some leftist policy person. I believe in helping working class folks. If you can give me an example, I can help you with that. If you give me an example,
the working class is just factually, objectively, by surveys, the working class is leaving the Democratic Party and moving to the Republican Party. Now, you say the Republicans aren't offering them anything, but they're voting with their feet. So the question I have is, in your view, why do you believe that there is a movement of working people away from the Democratic Party towards the Republican Party? What do you see as the motivation for that?
This is one of those moments where, in the folks that I know and in my world, racism, misogyny, and homophobia play a huge part of it. And Democrats haven't done a very good job of messaging on issues that are important to working people. They have, thanks to Clinton, thanks to some of the policies that they moved during the trade era. They haven't moved the messaging that I think they should have been doing. But I think a lot of it comes down to the simple reality that the country's changing and people are afraid.
Right. But my point is that I'm surprised that since you are so in favor, and correctly so, in favor of the working class and the union movement, that you would be critical. As you say, you are critical of the Democratic Party for not messaging correctly, yet you never speak about that.
I'm critical of the Democratic
Party. About the misogyny, the transphobia, all the other stuff, but you never really focus and criticize the Democratic Party for the loss of working people and what they need to do. That's my concern. So the Republican Party, ironically, is becoming the party of the working class, and it's going to continue to move in that direction. And I just suggest that you sometimes focus on that angle. And
I appreciate it, Steve,
for your show.
I appreciate it. Thanks. No, this is one of those moments where he's not entirely wrong. Democrats have lost some of that support, and I argue a big part of it is they haven't gotten anything done. A part of it also is, as I've said before, Democrats, they're in a street fight. They're the party who's willing to hold your coat, whereas Republicans, they'll fight even if they're fighting against you. And I've asked the question a number of times. When was the last time a Republican put something forward legislatively that was going to make workers' lives better? Now, again, as I said, I think it comes back down to racism, misogyny, and homophobia. Is the transgender issue driving? Yeah, some of it. And for me, not my issue. So am I going to spend a lot of time on that? No. I've said my piece on this. I don't understand it. Don't get it. Don't have to. It's not me. I want people to lead their best lives. I want them to have the ability to follow life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Hate mongers need not apply. And those are the fives. And if that's the working class, then we got problems much bigger than the Democrats just losing a couple of votes. I just hung up on somebody. I apologize to I guess that was Bob. I'm sorry, Bob. Deborah, we got Deborah in I guess Deborah in LA. Deborah, how are we doing today?
I'm okay. How are you, Rick?
I am fantastic. What's on your mind?
I wanted to talk about the fact that, this whole baby formula shortage thing has made me realize that we need to decentralize. We need to spread apart our manufacturing again, and Build Back Better was part of that.
Yep.
I think the messaging is wrong from the Democrats. Why didn't we call it Beat Back China? Why didn't we call it that? Because, I think that would have gotten much more support.
Yeah, but then again, this to Steve's point. This what would have then happened is then we would have been called racist because now you're racist against China, and it's not against the Chinese, it's against the communist government. You'd have a whole bunch of explaining to do and all of this. You're right. We've got to beat back the Chinese manufacturing of stealing jobs and all of this. Our messaging's terrible. You're right.
Yeah, I think it's really about bringing back all those manufacturing jobs across the country. I'm a proud union member out here in LA, and it's really hard to find those middle-class jobs, and it's what's causing the cratering of so many things in our society, and it's going to take a generation to build that stuff back. I guess nobody wants to hear that message.
But it's one we have to tell, and this is where I said a moment ago, I'm a huge fan of Sherrod Brown, much like I'm a huge fan of John Fetterman. These are people who I believe the Democratic Party should be getting behind and coalescing behind because their message is the right one. It's the economy, stupid. We need to rebuild those rural community manufacturing jobs. We need to give those communities an identity again. We need to talk about unionizing jobs. We need to talk about dignity and respect of family and all of those things that we've kind of gotten away with a little bit. Gotten away from a little bit. And I think that's the direction the party needs to go. Back to Stephen's point that, some working class folks have moved to the Republicans, but this has been going on for years. You go back to Thomas Franks, what's the matter with Kansas? What's the matter is, sadly, the economics, they were getting beaten so badly that their ideas changed on what was important to them. They started, being more concerned about values than feeding themselves. This is something where I think they have to start fighting back on.
I hope they do, and I hope we all do as a country.
I appreciate the call, Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I mean, this is, the more this is banging around in my head, and I appreciate the call, Stephen, because it's an important observation. It's an important observation to think about what Stephen threw out there. The Democratic Party has been losing the working class for a while. And for me, it comes back down to policy. What policy aims are they pushing and what messages are they pushing? Republicans have been really freaking good at division. Amazing at taking that one little sliver issue. The bathroom issue, for instance. How many people have actually encountered that in their lifetime? Minuscule numbers. But they have an echo chamber and a messaging machine that you think it's everywhere, that the country's being invaded. And this is where the left didn't do a very good job. I do a nationally syndicated radio program. Monday through Friday, 9 to 11, we do our little song and dance. I do my little thing here, 6 to 8 on Saturday night, because I love this format. I love radio. There are maybe across the country 50 stations that we can be on, maybe. Rush Limbaugh could have been on over, I think he was on 1,250 stations. And you go, but Rick, that's because, that message. No, that's because corporate America has decided that's what the working class needs to hear. That's because the advertisers, the moneyed interests of this country are saying, this is what we want. It's not what the consumers are saying. This is what's being force-fed to us. That's the frustrating part to me. And it is what it is. Let's get Bob from Staten Island on the line. Bob, how we doing?
Hi, Rick. Okay, Rick. I just wanted to make the point you mentioned Sherrod Brown. He voted for war by voting for the money to go to Ukraine, the $40 billion. All the Democrats in the Senate and the House voted for war by voting to send money over there.
Okay, what would you have done? What would you have done?
It makes.
What would you have done, Bob?
I would not have sent money over there because I'd like to see a negotiated settlement, though.
Okay,
because the more money you send there, the more killing there'll be.
Okay, so then what you're saying is that you would have just let Putin run over them then.
Putin. The only reason that the Russians went in there was that for the war started in 2014. The Ukrainians have been bombing the eastern part of Ukraine for all these years, and that's when the war really started, though. So I notice you don't mention the people in the eastern part, the Donbass area. They've been bombed by Kiev for all these years, and I don't see you mentioning that.
Yeah, I haven't talked much about what's going on over there, to be honest. And the sad reality is, what I'm hearing from you is just screw them, let them go. Is that what I'm hearing? I want to make sure I get what you're saying.
I'm for peace, though. I'd like to see a negotiated settlement, though. I think by sending money over there, you're just prolonging the killing.
And what leverage would you have had with negotiation in peace? Because I'm with you. I want peace too. I don't like seeing infants being killed. I don't like seeing people being bombed. I don't like seeing any of this stuff. I want peace all over the place. What leverage in negotiations do you think they would have had?
The trouble is that the Democratic Party is in the pockets of the military-industrial complex. They're the ones that make money by war.
Yeah, everybody.
So
makes
as far as
money
the Democrats being a working-class party, that's really silly.
It's not just the Democrats; it's all of them. Not going there with you.
Yeah, they're all in the pockets of the military-industrial complex.
We are not going to disagree on that. All of our politicians are not disagreeing. Appreciate the thoughts.
So I don't understand your pro-Democratic Party viewpoint, because both parties are basically right-wing. Probably the Republicans are more right-wing than the Democrats, I suppose. But I'm not even sure about that lately.
Okay. So. Appreciate it, Bob. Thank you. There's a thought. Let's quick go. We got Joy in Brooklyn. Let's get Joy in Brooklyn on the line and get her thoughts. Joy, how we doing? Uh-oh. Did I hang up on Joy? No, I didn't. No, nope. She's on 3? Okay, well, we got Joy on line 3. Oops.
Hello?
I'll figure this out. I'm sorry. How we doing, Joy?
Okay. Sorry, I don't know what happened. So this is my first time calling, and I was looking to some of the posed is very interesting. But this is what I also want to say. As an African-American woman, right, one of the things that really has me furious with the Democratic Party, and my father actually is an immigrant. Well, he's illegal immigrant. He got deported years ago. But that's just to say, there's a lot of talk about immigration, undocumented. And as an African American, it can be very annoying when the Democratic Party, all day, they are writing legislation that's willing to do whatever they can for undocumented immigrants. However, for African Americans, who are their most devoted and most loyal constituency, they fail to do any executive order or even just let it pass it and let it just go in court. And, we have to hear about this all the time. Now, when you get other people who piggyback on the rights of African Americans, it's very infuriating. So while the Republicans have very racist rhetoric, one thing that they do talk about is America first. And I think that the Democratic Party needs to focus more on the Americans here, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Arabic, whether you're Chinese, whether you're Buddhist, whether you're atheist, whether you're agnostic, whether you worship Islam. You need to focus on the people here, because all they talk about undocumented immigration, when you have hundreds of thousands alone came across the border in April, whether they made it across, whether Biden or Obama or Trump was the most deporting president ever, it doesn't matter. When you have hundreds of thousands coming into the country, there's only but so much room is competition. Everywhere you go, there's competition. We have to compete for jobs as African Americans. I'm a high-skilled worker, but most of the people in my family are not high-skilled workers. They have to compete for jobs. You cannot compete for someone who is willing to work for maybe below the minimum wage, live in apartments or homes with 12 people. It's impossible. If I was an employer, I don't think I would hire an American worker because it's cheaper. So the Democratic Party needs to focus on that. That's number one. Number two, LGBTQ, there has always been an LGBTQ population. And yes, they should not have to live in the dark. They should be in the military and every other right, and I'm glad they have the right to get married. I have several gays in my family. However, no one wants a man in their bathroom. I don't care what anyone says. And when I speak to other people privately and I say, would you like my husband, a big black man, walking into the bathroom with your 6-year-old little white girl daughter or other little child? You would not like it. Would you like my husband because he feels he's a woman that day to go into the girls' locker? You would not. I would not. I don't think it's fair. Should someone like Caitlyn Jenner be allowed to live in her truth? Absolutely. Would I feel threatened if I was involved Caitlyn Jenner? I would not. But would I feel threatened if a man, just an ordinary working guy just from the street came into the bathroom? Yes, I would feel a little bit nervous about that. I wouldn't want my daughter. I have to go to the extremes of telling my daughter to make sure she's careful that there's not a man in the bathroom. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is all day you hear from the Democratic Party. They need to focus more on bringing jobs back, doing more for their most loyal constituency. I don't care if it gets challenged in court. And enough already with men and women's bathrooms, and just everything is just like, oh, transgender. It's not the end all. It's a small population, and they should live their truth. But this is getting ridiculous. So this is why they're losing a lot of people like me, and I teeter-totter back on it every day. Thank you.
You know, Joy, hold on. Don't go anywhere. I don't disagree with you. Don't disagree with you at all. I don't want, some 6'4", 300-pound guy walking into a bathroom with my daughter either. That doesn't happen as often as we're feared into believing it does. In fact, most of the transgender people that I know, they're trying to lead their lives as the gender that they're trying to be. And in the past, before this was made an issue, you didn't know that they were there. Because this has been going on for a very long time, Joy. This is not new. And look, I'm not going to be the voice or the champion of the transgender world. I don't understand it. Don't understand it at all. I want them to live their lives. I want them to have the best lives. I don't get it. But that said, they should have the same rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that you and I have. You're right, though.
Agreed.
You're right in the fact that the Democratic Party has taken this stuff, and that has been saddled on them as that's their only message. And my point is, This is where a media culture that is owned and controlled by right-wing voices and corporate interests has spoon-fed us this stuff. Every election cycle, we get fed this kind of division and this kind of stuff. This is what we're focused on.
But are we focused on this really because of Republican Party? I don't believe that, because Republicans don't run around talking about transgenders because it offends them. That's just not true.
No, the bathroom issue was a campaign issue. No, the bathroom issue was a campaign issue in North Carolina. That was all about the governor's race back then.
I agree with you, but every time you hear from a Democrat, it's about that. But I'll even acknowledge, yes, these were always the things, but when you have silliness like the person, like Leah Thompson, going in swim meets, it's just not fair. It's one thing if she had fully transitioned where she's biologically now a woman. She hasn't. It's just not fair, and it comes down to fairness. But aside from the transgender thing, blacks have to compete with undocumented people, and it's not fair. And the Democrats have put undocumented ahead of American citizens. They have not done anything for the black population, who's the most loyal population. They give us a lot of promises, a little platitudes. They come around to the churches every so often, and they do not do anything for the black population. When it comes to the blacks, well, we have to do this because it's for everybody. Why is everything for everybody? Chinese are not in the same situation financially as African Americans. Arabic people are not in the same financially as African Americans in this country. African Americans are the lowest in every possible statistic you can imagine in this country, but they don't do anything for their most loyal group. So that's the main issue I have with the Democratic Party. It's a whole lot of talk and no action. A whole lot of talk and no action when it comes to African Americans. They cannot do anything solely for African Americans. They have to include other groups. But when it comes to other groups, they can do an executive order here. They can do a legislation there. There's a march there. Look at how they treated the Haitians when the Haitians were living under the bridge in Texas. I think it was Texas. They looked like they were in a third world country. Where were all of the organizations running down to help all the Haitians? You could count them by hand. You didn't hear any mass protests. If it wasn't for a drone or a few people who knew, we would have never heard about it. It's an outrage. But they were flown on the first JetBlue, and I'm being facetious, on the first JetBlue back to Haiti. Many who have never even been to Haiti and only spoke Spanish, they were flown back. So where were all of these organizations, the same way they ran down some Central Americans at the border, where were they? They were not there. And I know they were not there because I searched on the internet to see if they were there. And the limited footage that they did have, you did not see the same response when it came to the Haitians. They had the Haitians living down there like a bunch of 1984 Ethiopian clips when they were having starvation.
Yeah, the Democrats have a lot of problems. And I don't have the answers for all of them. No,
I don't, but they need to address that. Everyone's silent when it comes to that. They don't talk about that because it's an ugly truth and everyone knows it. Yeah. I don't hear on this radio station, on any radio station, talk about that.
Yeah, but here's the other side of this for me, and this is where I got to go here. For me, the other side is worse. That's just where my view is. The other side's not going to do anything at all or listen to you at all, and I've seen that. So that's where I'm at. I appreciate the thoughts, though, Joy.
That's true, but we need action and more less words. Action.
Yeah, and this is where I think what you've said, I hope they hear. I'm with you because I've been saying the same thing about labor. They don't do enough to help labor across the board. I don't care whether you're white, black, green, purple, orange. I think you should be helping workers. Now, again, you talk about, the blacks versus, undocumented. My problem with, not doing anything on the undocumented issue is you push people further underground, makes conditions worse for everybody. So it's one of these situations where
whoever here needs to be here. Whoever here needs to be taken care of, whether they're undocumented or not. If I was somewhere poor, I would do all I can to get to a better situation. If a person is here, they have to be treated with respect. You have to do what you can to get them out of the shadows. Yeah. But that does not mean you can forever keep the door open. At some point, the door has to be closed because resources are resources. I don't care if you're a teacher in a classroom and you only have 30 pencils. If the kid keeps breaking their pencils without a sharpener, the resources are short. Resources can only stretch but so far.
I appreciate the call, Joy. Thanks so much. Please call again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Let's see what Daryl's got to say. We got Daryl on line 3. Daryl, how are we doing today?
Hold your left hand up higher.
Hold my left hand up higher?
Hand up higher.
Okay.
You're getting pummeled.
No, I deserve it.
No, you don't. I mean, we all are human beings. With regard to the transgender thing, what is helpful is to start from hermaphrodite. If you can understand, and just do just a little bit of research, but the bottom line is that folks are having a hard time straight across. So wherever the person who's having a hard time feels most vulnerable, they'll pick at someone, quote unquote, lower down on the class structure and pummel the hell out of them so that they can feel better. Yeah. I'm glad to know that the working class is moving to the Republican Party, because I've worked most of my life, and I'm not moving to the Republican Party. So the gentleman must have been talking about a certain type of working class. Next, feel for Joy, but she's playing in the same ball game, and unless we understand that Democrats don't have the vote, so you're going to have to once again hold your nose and either beef them up and then take over the party, because that's where you are. It's not the Democrat. It's you're a Democrat. And if you're not getting what you want, it's just like the union situation. I've heard people say to me, "Oh, but my union." Hello, you are the union.
Exactly.
If you don't like the leadership, may get bloody and nasty, but you have to get up and organize and get people to help you along. So I just wanted to support you in what you're doing. I won't even mention Good Search.
No, good. Do it by all means. I've been using it. Please do.
Oh, no, you haven't. No, see, I don't want to say it because I need other people to say it, because then my voice gets associated. Someone said to me, "Oh, Good Search guy." No, that's not what I want. I want 501c3s to support one another. I want someone to come out and say, we want to raise money for whatever the thing is, create a 501c3. Everybody does the penny search, and we got the money. We don't have to go to, quote unquote, them, because we've created our own wealth, because that's where it's all going anyway.
No, I love that. I love Good Search guy. I like that. By all means. But no, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. No, I needed that in that moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Daryl. No, look, what this says to me is that there's anger out there, and that's good. It's a good thing, because anger is still an emotion, and it means that people are still engaged. My problem is when people are indifferent, because it means you're detached. Anger is good. Anger can be directed. You can address some of those concerns, because look, as I said, the transgender thing is not my issue. I've come along on some of these issues over my lifetime. I've had friends who have transitioned, people that I would have never imagined. And as I said to a person who I've known for years, at the beginning of last year, he said that I'm going to become a woman, and this is by name. And okay, that's your name. I respect that. We had a very long conversation, and I said, look, I truly don't understand. I'm never going to understand. And there's probably part of me that is glad I don't understand. There's part of me that goes, I'm happy I don't live in your skin, and I don't know why you're feeling the way you do. And that, for me, probably a good thing. But what I hope for you is that this is it, that this makes you happy, that this provides you that whatever you're looking for, to lead your best life, to be able to be happy. I think, and if we can't want that for everybody else, I got a problem with that. Do I agree with everything everyone does? No. The sports thing for me is, as someone who was very athletic and was the dumb jock all through high school and college, I got a problem with that. There's got to be some fairness in competition. But are we going to, go the Harrison Bergeron route where we're going to, maybe is that next? Because, hey, I used to play basketball against people who were much bigger than me. I don't know. I do have a problem with some of the things. And maybe it's going to take us some time to adjust. Maybe it's going to take us some time to develop, ways of figuring that out. But the kind of visceral hatred, and this is where, to Stephen's point, as I'm chewing on this in my head, my initial reaction to why are there some people who are leaving the Democratic Party? It comes back down to racism, homophobia, and misogyny. And as our divisions get harder, and this is where I'm struggling because I don't want that. Look, I know people who are racist and homophobic and misogynist, but they're good union people. So I want to make sure that at least on the labor issue, we're still voting on that. We're still pushing forward on that, even if I don't agree with everything else. But here's the other part of this: we're in a country. It's their right to think and feel how they think and feel. I don't have to agree with them. I don't have to like them. I don't have to like what they think. But they're entitled to their thoughts too. And this is where I think some in the Democratic Party, and this is to Stephen's point, there is a purity test. And purity tests on both sides are bad. Absolutes are bad. I'm not an absolutist. I've never been. Live your life. Be happy. Just don't shove it down my throat. I think that's fair. And I think we've got to get back to this. My grandfather always used to say, don't worry about me, worry about yourself. This is one of those moments. Don't worry about somebody else. Worry about what your family's going through. And the struggle that I have is we're in a moment where people are really, really having a tough time. Communities are struggling. We've got opioid addiction problems. We've got, people who aren't making enough money through their jobs. They're worried about health insurance. They're worried about retirement. They're worried about so much. And what we're being spoon-fed by a corporate media that's hell-bent on keeping us divided and pitted against each other, against one group or another. We're segmenting ourselves. Joy, talked about, only doing things for the African American community. And I'm like, my visceral reaction is we should be doing for everyone. But, here, again, I do understand. 400 years of oppression makes you go, yeah, damn it, we deserve something. This is a moment of we need to come together as opposed to ripping ourselves apart. And this is where I think someone like Sherrod Brown, someone like John Fetterman, the messages that they bring of inclusion and diversity, but also the economic part of this. Why I think that's so important. And look, for Daryl and folks who are coming to my defense, and thank you, Daryl. I like getting beat up. I like the angry emails. I like the fact that someone's going to challenge some thoughts because it means we're going to have a dialogue. Some of my most cherished conversations are those ones where someone doesn't agree. And we walk away from each other thinking just a little bit differently. Because it leads me to believe that maybe there's hope for us as a country. Once we put a flag in the ground, once we say that we're team MAGA or team whatever, we're not going to move forward. And then we're easily divided. And the more easily divided we are, the more we don't get what we need. We know corporate America and the wealthy, they get everything they wanted because we are so divided. This isn't a right-left thing for me. This isn't an immigrant versus native. This isn't a white black. This isn't a gay straight. This is a top-down thing. This is the 99% versus the 1%. This is the wealth class who creates these divisions and exploits these divisions and pits us against each other. Look, you may not agree with everything I say. I may not agree with you, but at the end of the day, I want you to lead your best life. I want your life to be better. I want your kids to have opportunities. I want you to live the American dream. And I don't think that's too much to ask for anyone. And I don't think you wanting that for me or anyone else is a bad thing either. Just my thoughts. I appreciate you tuning in. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I do answer all emails personally, especially the angry ones. And Stephen, if you'd like to email me, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Also, podcast. Make sure you download the podcast at the website or wherever you get your podcasts, from iTunes to iHeart, Podbean to Stitcher, and everywhere in between. They are always there. Make sure you grab those. Thanks so much for tuning in. Also, remember, become a WBAI buddy by going to WBAI.org and doing that. Thanks so much. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where we're